And I remember speaking to Madeleine about a number of things over a period of years because we're in regular touch, but I need to reach out to her again soon. And I think what Veronica didn't mention is her father committed suicide, if not last year, the year before. And she was living still with him about 3-4 years ago in a beta company. She said to me, and I asked her a question, but I asked her something, and she said, but Monica, I love my father. He wasn't a bad father. I love him. I still love him. And this is where we must understand these cases are complex. We must understand what Veronica was saying about the backlash she got from talking the truth, even from people within the family who had also been abused. We must listen to the stories we heard today and we'll hear later on the video. There's nothing simple about it. And I agree with Rudolph. I agree with Rudy when he says that, yes, the response system, the criminal justice system, that's correctional facilities, that's the courts, that's the magistrates, the prosecutors, the police officers, that's the criminal justice system, that's the response. Response meaning they come once an act has been committed. Are there flaws in the criminal justice system, in the response? Yes, they are. Do they need to be fixed as a matter of urgency? Yes, they do. But the real work that has to be done is in the prevention work. Because the police responds to something that happens in our homes and they cannot be in our homes. And the damage that is being done is happening young. All of us sitting here, please put up your hand if you're the exemption. Have seen or heard things in our own families, if not experienced them ourselves, that we know wasn't right. All of us know of something that we know should have been reported. So when these men get up on platforms like this and they speak, we know statistically that the amount of gender-based violence cases that are reported are a fraction of the cases committed. We know statistically that of that fraction that's actually reported, the conviction rate is about 11%. 16%. And this is already a small fraction. So what we know for sure is that the majority of people who perpetrate crimes are not arrested, are not caught. What we know for sure, those who are arrested are not convicted. So the main culprits are amongst us. 1 or 2 could even be here right now. Never been prosecuted, never been arrested, never been held accountable. Yet we call the 16% in jail monsters.
Yeah.
There are no monsters. There's only us. They monsters, we are monsters. It's our fathers, our brothers, our pastors, our uncles, our cousins, our teachers, our police officers, our husbands, our grandfathers. They're not monsters. It's us. I do have a speech and the media must excuse me because I think you must take my speech as read. I've got no discipline when it comes to reading speeches. And my staff members work so hard to prepare these speeches for me, but I never get it right. Because I get so worked up. Because I feel like you feel. I feel like we're getting on this platform saying the same things year in, year out. 3 years ago I watched you and Ninja. And many of you at Avia's memorial service crying. Ninja used to be called the script of Caribou, I think. And he's not a script, he's a human being, he's a huge, tall, muscular guy who's got a life sentence, a concurrent life sentence. And he was crying. And he was saying exactly what you were saying. That when is this going to stop? And I'm grateful to Bertha. Bertha gets me into lots of trouble. But I love her in a way that will never change. But I'm grateful to so the shut it all down protest insists it didn't have leaders, but it did have people who directed. And Bertha was one of those people who directed. And we can quibble with some of the demands, whether they were right or not right, but what we can't quibble with is they put renewed energy into the topic of sexual and gender-based violence. Because we do start to suffer from compassion fatigue. We do start to hear the same story over and over again to the point it doesn't touch us the same. So I am grateful to those who went to the street and reinvigorated and redirected that conversation and put it top of mind again, because it's happening so regularly that it's easy to start saying another one. And the names that Bertha was mentioning are the names that make it into the newspapers, because what we also know is that the rapes and the murders, the ones that even appear in the newspapers, are a small number. So if you think of gender-based violence as a pyramid, the murder of women is one of the smaller statistics. The big statistics is at the bottom. Emotional abuse, financial abuse. So men who financially and emotionally abuse their partners are outraged at the rape and murder. That's at the top of the pyramid, but they don't know that what they're doing here at the bottom of the pyramid is what climbs up and goes up top. So when I see, I'm sorry to interrupt myself, I do that when I don't agree, but Frank is looking at me, and I was called a bad mother because of Frank. And my kids called me a bad mother because I was on some board with Frank. And then my kids found out like 3 years later, I sit on a board with Frank Fredericks. And my daughter was really hurt because she read about him in the textbooks. And she could not believe I know Frank Fredericks. So I told her, but Kayla, who's a kind of famous, what's wrong with you? No, but mommy, this is Frank Fredericks. So every time I was going out, Mommy, we're going to meet Frank Fredericks. So I would be offended. Eventually she called me a bad man. So Frank, I still have a grudge against you for getting me called a bad mother. But the idea of being a bad mother is one, none of us want to be called a bad parent, a bad mother, a bad father. But if we're honest, there's been times all of us have been bad parents.
Yes.
There's been times all of us have said or done something problematic in front of our kids. And kids are irritating, honestly. So sometimes you also just, aye. And there is reason, particularly with girls, where we need to be careful. And that poem of Bertha drove that point home for me. Because there is research, Bertha, that the physical space of adolescent girls shrinks from about the age of 12. Where young girls were interviewed and they say they prefer not to go to the park. They prefer not to go to the gym. They prefer not to walk past a construction site with men at the top. Because they know they're going to be harassed. When my daughter was 12 and she came home and she said, Mommy, the security guard looked at me funny today. I knew what she was talking about. I knew that look. Because I was a tomboy as well, and I used to run around in the streets of Orango without a shirt. And I only used to play with boys, and I used to fight, I was such a tomboy. But then my boobs started to grow, but I was still not wearing a shirt. And it was my father was like, maybe you should start wearing a shirt. And I never understood why he was uncomfortable. But then when I did wear a shirt the one day, one of his friends looked me here, and he said, oh, no, I can't care. It means, oh, but you're getting big. It's what Bertha was calling, you are right now. I don't think there's a single woman who has not gone through something like that as we hit puberty. So our bodies, especially chubbier girls, with bigger breasts, with wider hips, we know that look. And we know that our space does get reduced. So when I'm asked all the time, why do you focus on girls and women? The truth is I don't. The truth is, we work with everybody because every perspective is important, including the perspective of men. But the truth is also, statistically, girls and women are at the receiving end. So I often wonder, especially when men ask me, well, why don't you focus more on boys? I ask, why don't you? Do you expect women to do everything? Why don't you? What stops you from starting a boys' club? What stops you from starting a men's club? What stops you from also doing what we're doing for boys and for men? So women must save other women and girls, and we must save boys and men. Patriarchy wasn't created by women. But we certainly know not all men create patriarchy, but they benefit from it. I agree with you, also it's not us versus them. Everybody suffers from patriarchy. There are more men in this country who are killed by other men than women. Listen to that again. Assault, GBH, assault with intent to do grievous bodily harm, is one of the biggest crimes in this country. And the biggest victims of that are men, not women. The biggest victims of murder statistics in this country is who? Men. It's men, not women. So patriarchy kills men more than it kills women. And within that patriarchy, women are also killed. So you'll never have low levels of gender-based violence if you have high levels of general violence in your society. A true story, a man killed another man here in Soweto because his friend dropped his bottle of Castello. Sorry, it was Mona's Granada. And please stop calling Mona's Granada Monica Geingos. It's not fair. But this man dropped a bottle of Mona's Granada. And his friend killed him for that. Now you tell me that friend, if his wife annoys him, is he not capable of killing his wife? So this impacts all of us the same. It's not men versus women. It's not us against them. They aren't angels and demons. It's only us. There's a story today in the newspaper of a man who killed his son and got 30 years sentence. And that story has always bothered me because what happened in that story, he was sitting at a shebeen and he loved that boy. He was sitting at a shebeen with his friends, they were drinking. And the one friend decides in that environment of alcohol at the shebeen in front of other people to tell him in that moment, by the way, that child you're raising isn't yours. That man left the shebeen, went home, found that 4-year-old child, smashed his head in the concrete floor at home. Should he have been arrested? Definitely. Should have been sentenced? Definitely. But we also need to ask ourselves if the manner we deal with information that we have that is sensitive. Am I blaming the friend? I'm not. But we must be careful of what we say, when we say it, how we say it. The friend had a legitimate concern to say this child isn't his. That man obviously suspected the child wasn't his. But let us learn to resolve complicated issues with the help of professionals if we know we're not capable. There's many outstanding conversations even in our families. We must learn to have constructive dialogue. And as we learn this problematic mindsets report that we're going to launch today, I want all of you to consider the possibility that we all have problematic mindsets. Yeah. All of us believe in something that is wrong, that is harmful, that is dangerous. And why we produce this report with the help of perpetrators, with the help of social workers, with the help of police officers, with the help of nurses, with the help of survivors and different perspectives, is exactly so we can stop thinking about these things from our opinions, some of which are dangerous, and start thinking of them from a statistical and evidence-based approach, because my views should be entirely irrelevant. And I cannot only listen to one side of the story. We must listen to all sides of the story, no matter how hard it is. But I think the bottom line is this, and I've been to the prisons enough to have, or the correctional facilities enough, to know that some of the cases were triggered by the behavior of women that wasn't right. But I also know enough to know that no matter what somebody does to you, you have no right to take their life or to harm them. But when a society creates the impression that women are possessions, that is what happens. When we as mothers and sisters do not support our sister-in-laws and the women in the lives of our brothers and our uncles, when they tell us that something has gone wrong, we are part of the problem. I'm lucky I have a sister-in-law. I've only got one brother, so I've only got one sister-in-law. And I love her to bits. As a matter of fact, we told my brother the other day, please never divorce her, because I think you'll have to find yourself a new family. Because Lausanne is going nowhere. You must rather go. But I also know of situations in families where the in-laws, the female in-laws, are hated. And sometimes they also behave in a way that triggers the hate. And when something does go wrong and she's beaten, it'll be like, sy is ook as sleg. That's net 'n klap gewees. It's not right. It's not right. And we need to fix these things in our own hearts. And that's what we're trying to get right here. And it was at one of our Medscheme events, Rudy, I think it was 2 years ago, where we had the aunt of a 11-year-old rape victim. She was raped and mutilated. Luckily, she's alive. And the aunt was explaining to us how she coincidentally came on the same road that the child was coming back after this had happened. And she said to the aunt, and I think she knew the perpetrator. She said, let's say his name was Stephen. Sorry, Stephen. She said, Stephen het my gewiwe. I've never forgotten those words. So, it's so, Viva, we all know what Viva is. So kids have internalized the language, unique to them, because we are not talking to them about these things.
Yeah.
So what we would call rape, the 11-year-old girl called me gewiwe, because she wasn't sure what had happened, but she knew there was something wrong. Those words don't leave me. Other words that don't leave me, I think you'll remember that one night when we spent so long in the correctional facilities, and there was the guy from the south, and he was angry. And one of the things he said is, niemand het ooit met pad gevat nie. And it made me think that dysfunctional homes, dysfunctional relationships are part of the drivers of GBV that we need to address, and all of us are part of that. Do I have dysfunction in my house and in my family? I do. Mental health issues, alcohol problems, aggression, absolutely. Do you? I'm sure you do. But how do we deal with it? Because we tend to them the problem. It's us. It's us. Judgment, hypocrisy. It's us. It's easy to them the problem. It's us. So I'm grateful to Medscheme. I'm grateful to the shareholders. I'm grateful to the board of directors. I'm grateful to the management. I know Ronnie and I have had a few conversations about the medical space and gender-based violence, because gender-based violence is an economic problem. There are economic consequences to gender-based violence, and not only in the perspective of women, but men as well. I know that with Medscheme as well. I know that every company that we've dealt with on this topic, within our companies, within all our offices, there's somebody dealing with something. So I'm grateful to you for supporting a cause that we need to encourage the private sector to support more of. Because the funding that is required to go into this fight is phenomenal. Bertha, I hope you guys go and march again in February when budget allocations are done. Because part of the problem of the Ministry of Gender, there's many problems. One is lack of funding. So I agree again with Rudy on that score. So please, media, I'm not saying they must go by. It's not me instigating. These kids don't listen to me. They do their own things. So I'm not instigating anything. I'm just saying Bertha constitutes. So I think from our perspective where we are as One Economy Foundation is we have tried to figure out what is it that is keeping people from their full potential. And gender-based violence is one of them. You'll be surprised the lifelong consequences of gender-based violence, something that happened to you when you were 10. I recently, and the reason I don't really worry about other people's stories, I've got enough of my own stories. But recently, I watched something and it triggered a memory that must have happened when I was about 10. But it's a memory I'm not familiar with, meaning I've suppressed that memory. And the minute I started to think about it and that suppression left, it started to expand and I realized, but this wasn't right. So often when we think about our childhood with adult minds, you wake up in the middle of the night and you realize that wasn't right. And this is the reason I react like this in these kind of situations. Imagine an 11-year-old's memory triggers when at my age. Do you think I'm stupid to mention my name? But it is my birthday on Sunday, so you can do the math. So we all have something that triggers us. All of us. It could be a word, it could be a smell, it could be a certain food, it could be a song, it could be a perfume. We all have something that triggers us and makes us think of something we'd rather not be thinking about. And my advice to you is get help. We don't get over these things, guys. We make space for it. We live with it. But we don't get over it, no matter how old you are. We've dealt with grandmothers who are still dealing with these things that happened to them on their way up. So, thank you, Metzky. Veronica, I'm grateful to you. I'm grateful to you as well. You're a fantastic host, by the way. You really are a communications expert. She's got a lot of presence. I like that. Vita, you complain when we don't invite you. And here you are. So I hope you notice that we notice these things. And say, look, I'm happy to see you.
I'm glad to be here as well.
You're glad to be here. So Vita, I've got a grudge against you. You know, Vita once wrote a column where he claimed that Hadi only married me because I'm on the wrong. I really need to apologize for that. You see, when I've got the microphone and settle score, but I love Vita. That's why you must know, I don't know what people say, I will be a politician. I'll be the worst, I'm very childish. But I love him, he loves me back. And we're going to work on this together because this is it's a mutual problem. Shirode and your entire team from Correctional Services, I'm very grateful to you and the work that all of you do. And I remember at a Be Free, I think it was in Tumen that we had in 2018. One of the kids said to us, but First Lady, why must we first be jailed before there's an attempt to redirect our path? That comment hurt me. Because I know the fantastic work that is being done in our correctional facilities. But I also know it's too late. We must redirect before the aggression escalates, before the anger escalates. We must have red flags in our homes. All of us have sons or cousins that we sometimes worry about in terms of aggression. So we must figure out a way with Metzky of how do we identify these red flags and redirect. I must thank the UNFPA and all the support that we've gotten and continue to get, because a lot of this research, you'll notice that the videos also has their logos. They've been consistent partners of the One Economy Foundation, and we're grateful for that. I think there's lots of partners that we're grateful for here today, including the media. I must be grateful to the Namibian media that we don't use the word passion killing anymore. But I have an issue. Last week there was a story, I think somebody got sentenced for the rape of an underage child, and one of the journalists said, and it was a female journalist who was talking about, he had sex with a 12-year-old. Nobody has sex with a 12-year-old. That's rape. There's no such thing. Sex is a consensual act. So terminology matters. Words matter. So 95% of the time, Namibian media gets it right, and we must be grateful for that. But 5% of the time, 100% of the time, especially on Facebook, that's why I don't go on Facebook, it's like a zoo for me. Facebook, find an article, a responsible article written, whether it's New Era, Namibian, Confidante, Informante, NBC, it's a responsible article of a rape that happened. Nothing wrong with the article and how it's written. Go check the comments. What was she doing at his place? But why did she eat his money? But this also doesn't sound right. Maybe she's lying. We must stop looking for the perfect victim. There's no perfect victim. The only time I haven't seen that stupidity is when a baby is raped. Because you can't blame a baby. If you can't blame a baby for rape, why would you blame a grown woman? So what if she was drunk? So what if she was high? So what if she was at his house? It doesn't give anybody the right to rape or murder. So I think as a society, we must also evaluate ourselves. The things that we say on social media, the things that we do in private, the things that we do in public, the things that we say to our kids. If I reflect on some of the things I've said to my kids growing up, I think I also had problematic mindsets. And I'm grateful that my kids have not inherited that. Like I swear, for instance, my kids don't swear, thank goodness. So they don't pick everything up from us. But they certainly do pick up something from us. And we must undo the damage that we've done. And go back to them and say, that thing that I said the other day, it's not on. One last story, just about the things that our kids do. My son told me the Wednesday he's bringing a friend over to the house. That time we lived in Olympia. No problem, I didn't have an issue, because I preferred them to bring friends to us and not the other way around. So his friend comes the Friday, and it's this little Afrikaans boy, Karel. Now I'm looking at Karel, and I'm thinking, but now what's going on here? So I said to him, no, but why didn't you tell me? So now my son says, tell you what, I told you on Wednesday I've got a friend coming. But my son was calling me out because he realized he meant, why didn't you tell me Karel is white? So our kids aren't stupid. Our kids can read in between the lines. And I didn't have an issue, I was just surprised. I really didn't have an issue. Karel's a great guy, they're still friends till today. He's my kid now also. But our kids know what we mean. Our kids know our blind spots. There's nothing worse than being criticized by your child because nobody's true. Then we chase them away, go away, you've got no manners, but in your heart you know it. I'm only angry because it's true. If there's somebody who knows our hypocrisy, it's our children. And they see our hypocrisy because they know the things we say outside and the things we do at home are not the same thing. So let us align our public and our private actions. And unlike these men who come here in green uniforms and we know what they've done, nobody knows what you guys have done. Nobody knows your secrets. And we've all got secrets. So let us stop being so judgmental. Let us stop with the hypocrisy. Let us hold hands and let's fix the issues that are wrong in our society, because at the end of the day, we all know it. Survivors as well. Some people prefer the word victims, some people prefer the word survivors. I don't tell people how to feel. So whichever term you relate to, we thank you, because we also know how long this journey is. I apologize if we've triggered anybody, because after an event like this, there are always triggers. And what I do encourage, if you have been triggered, we do have a very good psychosocial team. We do pro bono referrals to psychologists. So if there is something that you'd like us to help you work through, please let Veronica know. I tend not to know the details of what Veronica deals with, because she's got confidentiality issues that she has to comply with. But I do know that the work that Veronica and Perfimbo do, Perfimbo is our new social worker in our office as well. But I know that the work that you guys do is hard. So I think not only the two of you, but I think all social workers, all psychologists, we don't appreciate you guys enough, because they carry our stories with us. I know there was a case that I read through the detail, and the child said it was a rape case. And the child made a comment. The child must have been 6. It felt like he was peeing. I read that report about 20 years ago, but that description doesn't leave me. Because if a child of 6 is saying it felt like he was peeing, we know that what she meant was that man ejaculated in her. And I'm sorry to be graphic, but these things are graphic. Yeah. And these are the things that Veronica then deal with and go home with. Not only them, all social workers, all psychologists. So I'm grateful for the work we do, and we do need to put more funding into the work that you do. So thank you very much, and I think we're going to launch this. I hope you do go through it. It's got some very good insights. It's definitely changed my perception. What are the things that we're seeing in common of people who are ending up in correctional facilities? And there are some commonalities, and I want you to read the reports to see what they are. And you mentioned it, anger. Men don't have safe spaces to talk about their feelings. There's a number of things. Sorry? Toxic masculinity. And sometimes even us as mothers. If our sons come home crying, you're a man, stop crying. So toxic masculinity is often misinterpreted to only apply that only men have it, or only men are patriarchal. We all are. If I tell my child to stop crying because he's a boy, or I tell my daughter to go wash dishes because she's a girl, I'm participating. So all of that is in here. Some of the faces might be familiar because they've been in the media. I know it also triggers the families of the victims. And I have empathy for that. But we're not going to tell a full story of gender-based violence if we leave out the perspective of the perpetrator. So to the chairman of NextQ, Dr. Mbidi, your dissertation that you gave to my husband is still in our house. We both paged through it. I think it was on leadership and governance. We've got a lot of skill and talent in this country, and you certainly are one. We thank you for your leadership of NextQ. We thank Rudy for his leadership. Guys like Ronnie who are doing exceptional work, the principal officer, all of you. Dan Tapos, I think we were together about 2 years ago at the One NextQ again. So thank you to everybody. I really do appreciate it. You leave me, I'm going to talk